Hey, welcome to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin, and today we're joined by Erica Campbell. She's the author of the Mastectomy I Always Wanted. I wasn't even ready for that title, and you weren't either, were you? So Erica's story, I wanted to have her on because it's a story of courage, empowerment, redefining what it means to take control of your body. So, Erica, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Joe. This is going to be a really, really impactful conversation today.
Absolutely. We were talking a little bit before we came on that just she's been there. Okay. What she's about to talk, she's been there, and a loved one or yourself is going to face this, and she's here to kind of guide you through that, help you through. She did it, and so can you. So let's kind of take it back because you're no stranger to this stuff. I mean, you speak the vocabulary of cancer, unfortunately. So kind of take us through how your personal experience of not only you going through it, but also losing your mom to breast cancer.
Yeah, I talk about how I can speak the vocabulary of cancer in three ways: camps, cancer, and career. So what I mean by that is I actually used to be a summer camp counselor for kids with cancer.
Oh, wow.
When you want to talk about some relentless positivity, that's what you're going to see at a summer camp where there are kids just really fighting for their lives. And so that's where I learned. That was my first experience with some of the vocabulary, the things about cancer that you often hear about. What is chemotherapy? What is a port? What is some neutropenia? These words I didn't know before. And then during that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So I did have some preparation. I wasn't as unfamiliar with the terms, but she had a 4-year just roller coaster battle with breast cancer that really, really changed me as a person. And that was a challenging time in my life. I had to bounce back from that. And then my career. So I work at a nonprofit that helps kids with cancer and their families. It's called the Pinky Swear Foundation, and we keep this Pinky Swear promise from a kid who had that kind of positivity. He gave away his life savings before he died. And so it's just kind of cool that I've got all of these vocabularies, different words and different experiences with cancer, but then it still happened to me.
Wow, man. Yeah, I mean, not many people have that much effect on it from all kind of different directions. So, I mean, you obviously you know what's happening, and then you get your diagnosis. Can you take us back to that day and kind of how that went?
Yeah. Despite all of those experiences with cancer, Joe, when I was in that waiting period, right, I had just done a breast MRI, and they were like, well, we think we see something. We'll call you soon. Ugh. And so that day I got diagnosed, I'd actually been waiting for about a week for that phone call. So I was at work carrying around your cell phone into all your meetings where you're kind of like, you got it next to you and you're just holding on to it, because at that point I was nearly at the end of my rope. When you are waiting for test results, if any of your listeners has been in any kind of health journey, that waiting is hard. And about 4 o'clock on a Friday, after waiting a week, is when my phone rang. And, you answer the phone. I ran out of a meeting and the doctor said, are you sitting down and do you have a pen?
Oh, that's not good.
That is not a good way to start that phone call. And so, I did hear the words, I'm sorry that this is a cancer and it's a breast cancer. I would say I wouldn't say I blacked out after that, but your mind is starting to run so fast that you don't really listen to all the details. And I just remember looking down at the paper, I wrote breast cancer, call on Monday. And then the rest is almost a blur.
I imagine. Yeah, anything that traumatic that your brain just automatically, I think to protect you, it just shuts down like, hey, let's take a step back. We're not ready for this yet. So
Yeah.
so
And no matter how prepared or you think you are, you're not. And that's the hardest part.
yeah. Especially you thought, you've been through walking through this with a lot of people with your own mom, but then when it hits you, it's a lot, it's still different. So, I mean, along the way, you have these choices. So you have, medical ways you can go. So tell us first, what's the difference between a mastectomy and a lumpectomy and why you chose what you chose?
Yeah. A lumpectomy is almost the way you would kind of hear that word. They take out a lump. It's, for those of you who can see, it's like, just a small piece of the breast. I imagine it, Joe, like if you think about a cantaloupe and, you take a spoon and you sort of like carve out a little bit of that cantaloupe. That's what a lumpectomy is like. It's just going to take a small part of a larger part of your breast. The mastectomy, though, is a lot more invasive. It's going to be a removal of, right, the two cantaloupes on your chest. It's going to be a removal of those breasts in its entirety. And so those are very different surgeries. If that's an option for you, and it's an option for a lot of women, and we don't talk about it as often, there are trade-offs. There are some really tough, as you use the word choices about that. A lumpectomy, obviously, a lot easier in terms of a surgical choice. Great. But then that might come with some other interventions later, like radiation or chemotherapy or drug hormone replacements. But the thing that people don't talk about, and that's why I want to have this conversation, I'm so glad we're talking about it, is the actual fear of a relapse that's going to come with a lumpectomy, right? We can talk a little bit about that. So the mastectomy, far more invasive from a surgical perspective, but it's shorter term in that once you have that, make that choice, you can't relapse with breast cancer because you don't really have breasts. I did choose to have some reconstruction. And so that was a powerful choice that I still look the same, even though my body parts might be just a little bit different. But what I really appreciate, and your question about why I chose the more aggressive choice, is because of the fear, right? The pain of a mastectomy is temporary. The fear of a relapse, if you choose a lumpectomy, is going to be forever. You still have to go through mammograms. You still have to go for regular checkups for your entire life. And the chance of a relapse is a little bit stronger with a lumpectomy. So that's why I made that powerful choice.
Wow. I like how you call it a powerful choice. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. And when people get diagnosed with cancer, they always think, oh my God, I have no choices. You have so many choices. You absolutely, and yeah, you have some physical choices. You have mindset choices, and you have the way you think about it, the way you talk about it, and the way you mentally frame it.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of stuff I talk about. That's great.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about that all day long. Yeah.
That's awesome. So we hope no one listening ever has to go through a mastectomy, but if they do, what should they expect if they're going to go through one? Kind of take us through what that looks like.
Yeah. I always hate to say this, but what you're going to expect is a mental game. And that's why I'm really glad we talked about mindset here, Joe, because in my book, there's a lot of practical tips, right? Some really tangible things that a woman can do in order to prepare. I think the biggest thing to prepare, though, is your mind. And it's about, I had to view my mastectomy as not necessarily a punishment, right? Yeah, it's, wasn't the greatest physical feeling, but it was really, I had to view it as something that was going to save my life. I was going to have to go through pain and turn that pain into purpose. And the purpose was to live. The purpose this is why you go through all these treatments. I mean, sometimes with cancer, the treatment is worse than the disease, right? I'm sure all your listeners have known somebody who's been through some kind of surgical experience or chemotherapy. It's hard, but you got to have to think about that choice. And so preparing yourself mentally is the biggest thing I recommend. And even one of those things I recommend is journaling, right? Because you get to process those emotions, figure out what you're afraid of, figure out where your community is, figure out what is going to benefit you in the long run.
See, there you go. See, that's stuff you have control of. Anytime you can kind of take control of your own situation, just means so much more. Nothing changed physically, but you feel like you have a little bit of power in your situation.
Absolutely. And I just think I love the choice piece. That's why I wrote the title of my book is The Mastectomy I Always Wanted, because I had to make that the frame is oh, okay, this is the choice I was making. I always wanted this because I always wanted to live.
See, there you go. And then it's kind of weird, but anytime you go through something extremely stressful or emotional like that, there's gonna be some funny moments along the way. Can you gotta share some moments of things that maybe inappropriate, but they were actually funny during that thing?
Oh, for sure, for sure. We mentioned earlier that my mom died of breast cancer, and I think one of the hardest pieces was, she chose a lumpectomy first and then a mastectomy. So when she had that mastectomy, she chose not to have reconstruction, which means not to have real fake breast put in. So we had to get real creative over what we put in her. She still wanted to wear a bra. She still wanted to wear a bra. So we would like try and find the right sized socks to like, fold over and like ball up and stuff in her bra. And we would just, the funniest thing was trying to think of all of the crazy things we could stuff in her bra to make her feel like a woman again, right? We were like, how about a stale bread roll, And then it was like, do you have, dirty socks? What if, you can only find one? And so when I had my mastectomy, she had long passed away, but the funniest moments were just playing with my kids and having them try and find things around the house to like stuff in my bra. And gosh, we had some funny experiences there. Yeah. I mean, you have to laugh.
I was
If you
about to
don't
say,
laugh, you're gonna cry.
yeah. I was about to say, there's
And
probably people listening and say, maybe it sounds inappropriate, but until you've been in a situation like that, man, you crave laughter. You got to have it. It's a pressure valve release.
oh, 100%. And that the times where like you're laughing so hard. I mean, gosh, my kids brought me like toys, like the head of a Barbie doll. Like it was just some really funny things. And what I appreciated that they felt included in the experience.
Yeah. Man, I can't wait for someone to bring you a dinosaur or something like that. That's awesome right there.
Yeah, my son was 4 years old, and so he was bringing me all sorts of
Oh,
toys to stuff
that's
in my
gotta be
bra, and we're
awesome.
like, "Let's see what fits,"
So you decided to write this book. Was there a moment you're like that just, hey, I have to share this story? Was it like that, or you just kind of worked on it piece by piece?
Yeah. It actually started with another slightly funny story. Is as I was working at a nonprofit helping kids with cancer when I was diagnosed, and after I announced it to my team, a woman in the office I barely knew pulls me aside and is like, "Hey, um, would you be okay if I'm going to offer to show you my breast because I've had the same surgery 5 years ago." And I was like, okay, this is really weird because she works in my office. I don't know her very well, but yes, I do. And so we locked ourselves in a bathroom. She took off her shirt and she showed me her reconstructed breasts, fake ones. They looked so real, Joe, that I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to look like on the other side. And I felt like it was such a gift. I mean, this woman took the time and the vulnerability to show me my future. And I realized how rare that was. It's not like people are taking off their shirts and showing me their breasts all the time. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I should probably do this for other people. And so I didn't really start deciding to write right then and there, but I took all of these pictures before, during, and after the surgery, which I felt like someone is going to need this in the future. And sure enough, 6 months after I healed, women were asking me like, hey, my sister just got diagnosed. Hey, my neighbor just got diagnosed. Can you help them? Can you support them? And I found myself texting photos of my chest to these women that I didn't even know. And, obviously it creates community and a little bit of, laughter, right? It's like, did you really think I was going to be texting pictures of my boobs to these strangers? But I was like, I think I'm on to something, because it was so supportive to women to really see, okay, this is really what it's going to be like. These are pictures, Joe, you could not and should not Google on the internet. You know, you know what I mean? These are things that are not easy to find. And so that's what inspired me to write this book was I got to get these pictures out. More importantly, I got to get out all of the raw emotions that come with that, because I want women to say, oh, me too. Oh, I see myself in what you got going on, and make them feel less alone. And that has been hands down the best part.
Man, that is so important. That can help people through so many problems. They see someone else in their situation that got through it. Man, there's power in that. So you talked about being vulnerable earlier. In this book, you're very vulnerable. Was there any stories or things you were hesitant to share?
Yeah. Obviously the photos are vulnerable. In some ways though, for any woman who's listening that's been through this, lots of people end up watching and seeing my boobs, right? You have to show them to lots of physicians. But the most vulnerable pieces was probably the entries that came from my journal, right? So when I was diagnosed, a friend said, you have to journal. I was like, I do not own a journal. I do not want a journal, but I did it anyway. And I had a 10-year-old daughter at the time. All I could find was in the house was like a journal she wasn't using. It was like teal colored with glitter and like a fake lock on it. I'm like, I'm a grown woman writing in this like teeny bopper journal. So when I decided to write the book, I went back to it. And I was like, ooh, this is kind of rough, because at the time I thought it was quite private. I was writing some really raw things. Sometimes I was angry, where I'd like write so heavy on the page that, your pen bleeds through. Sometimes I was so sad or in such a pity party. And so there's a section in the book that actually I turned those fragmented journal entries into poetry. And I was really hesitant. I'm not a poet. I don't claim to be one, but the vulnerability and the sort of clarity that comes through in those entries has been the most powerful thing for women and men. The caregivers, like the husbands, the boyfriends that have read this, they find that to be the most helpful part. It is the most vulnerable part, because it's like the things that I was thinking at the time were kept private that I'm now putting out there publicly. But I'm willing to do that because I just want women and men to know what it's like and to know that all of their feelings are valid.
Wow. A lot of people have felt those and kept it to themselves, I'm sure. And that's not going to help anybody. So, man,
Right.
respect to you for sharing that. I know that wasn't easy to do. So, I mean, that's in turn of poetry. Look at you, man. You're doing all kind of things.
I know. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the part I almost cut out because I was like so embarrassed. I was like, I am not a poet, but I took a risk, and no risk, no reward. But I really want women and men to understand what it's like.
There you go. So we keep talking about the book. Where can people find the book?
Yeah, it's available on Amazon. So search under The Mastectomy I Always Wanted, or they can go to my website, which is www.ericanewbertcampbell.com, and learn about the book, or there's links there too.
Okay, and I'll link that in show notes, because people like me, they're not good spellers. It's okay.
I
No
know.
judgment here. Well, we can just click on things and it'll be much better. So, after all these experiences you've shared and all these things you go through, is there one message of hope you'd like to share with somebody listening right now?
Yeah. Oh, there's actually two, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Number one, trust yourself, because no matter what I say, no matter what your physician says, you got to ultimately trust yourself and make the best decision for you. And the other thing I always want to say, and I want women to know, is you are not alone. When you're newly diagnosed, you may feel that way, and you are not. I hope this book makes you feel less alone. And I hope you reach out to somebody, share that vulnerability, because that's where the connection, a community, and hope are found.
Oh, man. Hey, you help someone today.
I hope so. I hope so.
I guarantee you help someone today. So if you're listening right now, hey, you're not alone. And Erica did it. She made it through. So many people make it through. It's not the end, right? And she can kind of give you the blueprint and see, hey, I feel that too. I went through that too, and it's okay. That's so powerful in that. Thank you for sharing that, Erica.
Yeah, I really feel passionately about creating community amongst women and men. I want to just shout out to the men who support all of these women and are just incredible caregivers, friends, and loved ones. So thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Joe.
Absolutely. Hey, if you're listening right now, please share this episode with somebody. Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's someone that one of your friends, something like that. They need to hear this message of hope out there, and just keep getting this thing. Erica's trying to help people. Help her share this with as many people as possible. Go get a copy of the book. We all need a copy of that book. We need to get that poetry in there. She worked hard on that. So, Erica, keep up the great work, just inspiring and giving people hope out there. And you guys keep listening to Relentless Positive Podcast, and we'll see you next week.